There we are. All right. We're live. Hello, CNC brothers and sisters. I'm Garrett, and that's
Kate.
And we can actually point in the right direction this time.
I know we've got each other going on here. We are going to be doing a live epoxy pour today. Super excited you're here in my shop.
And I'm here in your shop.
I know. It's so exciting, y'all. It's going to be crazy. We have some really cool things that are going to be happening. So here's the table, live and in person. Oh my gosh, there's just going to be so much to talk about today.
Yeah. So what we're going to be doing is an epoxy pour on a table that Kate is making for me, and we have talked about this for about 8 months now, and she's been slowly in the process of doing it. And in my living room there's this empty spot where a table needs to be, so it's like, Kate, come on, sister. First thing is we want to do a mic check. Okay, so do me a favor in the comments, just type down you can hear us, and I am going to check the comments to make sure what you said.
Yeah, everything is good.
And we already got some friends on board.
Awesome. I see so many people.
And okay, Eddie says you can hear us. Thank you, Eddie. And with Darius. All right. Jen, you can hear us. Jeremy. This is hi, Kate and Garrett.
Hey, Jeremy. How are you, brother?
Yep. And I'm staring into, I'm like right here on the screen so I can read this stuff. You know, this is one of those things that just got to deal with. Who else we got here? Stefan. And okay, you do the reading.
Yeah, let's see who we got on here. How y'all doing? Happy Saturday.
Yeah. Hey, check this out. Kate's got her Women Who CNC hat there.
Yeah.
And I'm like 2 years shy of having like an IDC woodcraft.
I know.
So I'm gonna put Julian on it.
We gotta get that nailed down for you. All right, let's see. Let's start at the top here. So we've got Alan. He said this is a good time for us UK based folks. Awesome. I'm so glad this time's working out. Hey, William. Billy. Hey, welcome back. All right, Dirk. This sounds like a great topic. Yeah, and that's exactly why I've been recording and doing like the entire YouTube video of like, here's what I'm using, here's what I'm sanding. But I just thought this would be like a really cool opportunity for all of us to kind of reconnect. The epoxy video was so incredibly popular with Nate Woods. I mean, that was like insanely popular. So it's just really cool that we get to do this live. Like, I don't know if you guys know this or not, but Garrett is not like the epoxy.
I am epoxy stupid. So what's going to happen today is I'm going to ask Kate all the questions that someone who doesn't know, like me, and those who want to get into it. So we all can get educated on this.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right. So let's finish saying hey to some people. Okay. So we've got Dirk. Billy McGee says, I have poured a few river tables. Fun, yes, but lots of work and preparation. Hours and hours of work and preparation. All right. So it looks like we've got Nicasio. Billy's dropping in some more comments. We've got David.
David.
We've got Ellen, which is Madra. She's here from Wisconsin. Hey, Ellen. Oh, gosh. Okay, so we've got...
And Ellen, we just gave a little surprise.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I did a Facebook live video chat with her, and the last time we got together to just like kind of do a little mentoring session, we were having breakfast and I sent her a picture and she's like, that's it, I'm driving from Wisconsin right now, just stay put. So I thought we would just pop on Facebook and say hey to her in a video chat, and that was a lot of fun.
So, yeah, we FaceTime with Ellen real quick.
Yeah.
What's going on, sister? It's really good to put a face to a name.
Yes, absolutely. All right, so we've got Jen, we've got Richard, we've got Chris. Hey, Chris.
Hey, Chris.
I'm glad it's not like the middle of the night for you, so I'm so excited. Let's see, we've got Russell, Darius, Sam Campbell.
Yeah.
Hello from the hills and dark hollers in West Virginia. Oh my goodness.
Dark hollers. That sounds kind of spooky.
That's kind of what I was thinking. We've got Edie. And then hey, Jonathan. I've been wondering about you, friend. Jonathan was kind of one of my mentees. I've been wondering how he's doing. All right, so it looks like we've got lots of people popping on. So just want to say hey to everybody else. looks like, okay, so Jeremy says muffled but good. So I'm wondering, let us know if it does sound muffled. Oh, Gregory here, he's from France. Wow.
Very, very cool. I love this global stuff.
I know, I know.
So for those of you popping on, what we're going to be doing, right, is as the title in the video says, we are going to be pouring a river table here that Kate has been working on for me. I commissioned her, and
Yeah.
so now we're going to get on to it. So let's start diving in. Why don't you share like what our game plan is, and
Okay.
and
Well, I think first and foremost is I have some epoxy down here on the ground. We'll kind of try to move the camera around a little bit so you can see. So I have some epoxy here in this bucket. It's got hot water in it, and it's actually just warming up. It's really good to bring the epoxy to your room temperature. It's actually been sitting there for it's been sitting out for about a week out on my thing, kind of acclimating to the room temperature. But I like to actually really warm the epoxy up. It just makes sure that everything is pours really smoothly and there's just not a ton of added bubbles. So I've got some already ready to go here. That's
I'm gonna turn on the other screen. That way we can,
yeah.
show them. We got a couple screens. We're not going to use them all the time. So, okay. So, fire away, Kate. I'm now filming you right there.
Okay. So
what's going on here?
So I have a 2-to-1 ratio. So I've
Okay. So there's, when it comes to epoxy, there's two components, right?
Yep.
And what are the two components?
So this is the actual just epoxy, and then this is the hardener.
Okay.
So this is what we've got. So I'm just going to kind of set this here, let it drip dry for a second.
I'm going to shut your screen down.
Sure.
Okay. So we're just checking our audio, make sure we're doing okay here. Just give us an audio check.
Lost audio on both channels. Okay.
What's that?
It says they lost audio on both channels. Hey guys, sorry about that.
Hear you now?
Okay,
I wonder if it was because I turned your screen off.
Could be.
Okay, so all right. So I was trying to work with my screen, so we're just gonna have to work it that way. So where did we drop off at? So help us out so we can
Okay. Oh, hey Dion, he says. We can hear now, but lost everything.
Okay. No big deal. All right. Well, we're going to run through this again then. So the reason is because we are doing stuff with StreamYard that we are not used to doing. And so what I did is I shut off the main screen and that shut the audio down as well. So.
Okay. So maybe just mute one or the other. Is that what we're doing?
No, we'll just, I'm set on mute here, but
okay.
Learning technology. All right, so let's kind of go back. I had switched over to the phone. So what Kate has done is she's warming up the epoxy both.
Yep. So we're warming up all of the epoxy, and deep pour epoxy is very liquid as it is, but I like to warm it up and make sure that it's coming to room temperature. It's been sitting out for a week here, and it's been acclimating to my shop temperature, which has been about 75 degrees, which is fantastic. But I want to raise the temperature of the epoxy just a little bit more. So when I'm doing that, I am just making it thinner. I'm making it less prone to bubbling because when you're working with a transparent resin, it's a little bit more difficult to combat the bubbles, because when you're mixing in a color and you're using your mixing wand or your hand stirring, either way, you can tend to get a lot of bubbles. So warming it up is definitely helping take down the bubble situation, if you will. It's lowering the risk of the bubbles. Okay, so these are doing okay.
2-to-1 hardener here. Right?
2-to-1. Yep.
So this the blue one is the hardener. The orange one is the epoxy itself.
Yep. So we need 2 of these. So we need 2 of these to 1 of these. This is the 2-to-1 ratio. So, and these are each 1 gallon. So, and for those of you, if you missed that section, I apologize if we're being repetitive. But I have 12 gallons that I'm working with. So 12 gallons of epoxy, 2 epoxy to 1 hardener. I know on the live I said I had 18 gallons, but that is total gallons that I have present on my table. So I'm going to go ahead and.
Okay. So you got a pretty no voice talk about all this wood here.
Oh, yeah.
So if you get a little like echoey sound, that's because my phone here, I can't get the noise to stop all the way, and so it's like a little bit of a delay. Hopefully they're not getting too much of an issue there. We'll learn how to manage that as we move along. All right, so Kate was explaining that if you look at the wood right here, right, it's been cleaned up. She's cleaned it up. Got a few mill marks right there, but that's no big deal. And it's pretty wood, but what she did is she did put some epoxy on certain areas, and you see how it made that grain just pop. I mean, kabam. And
yeah.
Explain again why you have done what you did here.
Yeah. So quick question on your audio. Can you maybe mute your phone?
This one, I am muted here.
Oh, you are? No, I mean your actual like phone. Can you mute it?
I've got the phone turned all the way down. So it should
I'm just wondering if there's a way to. Let's see, guys, are you getting feedback? Okay. So we haven't gotten any answers on that, but we'll go ahead and go. Yep. Okay, so when we're working with the deep pour epoxy, I actually used a tabletop epoxy on this because tabletop is it's meant for 1/8 inch to 1/4 inch epoxy. It's not meant to do something like at this volume.
So what you have here is not the deep pour.
No, I have tabletop epoxy that I used. And the reason that I actually did that, I sealed this is because you can see all of these tiny, tiny little slits in the wood, and those will release air within the deep pour epoxy. And I do not want any bubbles coming to the surface. If you guys could have seen when I put this epoxy on here, the amount of bubbles that came out of this, it was incredible. And I thought, I am so thankful I am doing this now instead of fighting with 80 million micro bubbles trying to come up. Because what will happen is with these tiny little pockets, sometimes there's not enough air to force it to the top of the epoxy for us to rid it. So you can do a lot. You have to do kind of a little bit of, stirring, maneuvering the epoxy around to try and get it out, which can create more issues for you long term. And then sometimes they'll release a little bit of epoxy later on, creating micro bubbles, which I would actually have to drill down into the epoxy once the table is fully cured to get that bubble out, and then re-pour it with epoxy. And then you have to color match, and it's a whole mess of, it's a whole mess. So that's why I went ahead and sealed it. I sealed the edges, and it just makes everything go a lot smoother. So, but you can see the difference between the raw wood and the sealed portion. And I cannot tell you, I never thought that I would see all of this beautiful grain here compared to this.
Fantastic.
I mean, look at that. That's just insane. This to this.
So stark between what you finished and what you didn't finish.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to shut this one down for just a moment.
All
Thank
right.
you for bearing with us in our technology efforts here to figure all this out.
Yeah.
Okay. So what's the process here? Well, first of all, you want to talk a little bit about your mold, maybe?
Yeah.
Or you want to do something else first? Do we need to mix first, or?
No, I can mix and mix and talk, or we can talk and do whatever. I mean, I think there's a lot of information that goes into making one of these molds. I personally chose to make my mold. I actually used a piece of plywood, and I used 2x4s. I feel like 2x4s just provide a better, I have the ability to square up the mold versus using a flimsy piece of plywood or something like that, and then just creating a lot of extra work.
I'm being a cameraman today.
So like I said, I've just got some 2x4s, and then these were covered with Tyvek tape, as well as the piece of plywood here. I did complete the entire piece of plywood with the Tyvek tape before I attached the 2x4s. Now, some of you are probably wondering, like, what the heck is going on right here? And that's because when we put this on, originally I had this here. You can see where the 2x4 was that I kind of had sealed.
So she was going to go with a 36-inch table, wide coffee table, and I said I don't want that wide. That'll take up a lot of space. So she went down to 32.
Yep.
So you got some sealant in here.
Yep, we do. We actually have some caulk. So I made the mistake, and I used this. I really thought it was going to do okay. Let me show you what it was. So I thought this would be a really good option here. And I bought this from Lowe's, and it says Advanced Exterior Sealant Weather Max. Well, the problem was when I used this is I built this, and then I went to Kentucky for a few days, and I thought, okay, it'll be fully cured by the time I get back. When I got back, I was like touching it, and it was tacky, and I could like easily pull it up. So I tore all of that out, and then I went with this.
The DAP.
Yeah, the DAP sealant, and this has been great. But I will tell you, when you build these molds, you have to make sure to get every corner. So I have all of the corners sealed here, everything down here, as well as the interior, and then up here up top.
So you have seal here too.
Okay. Yep.
So it's all Tyvek tape.
Yep, all Tyvek tape, and then just caulked all all of the edges. And I even did, if you notice, on the outside here as
Yes.
well. So we want to try and prevent as many leaks as possible.
Okay.
And with this being live, I don't know that I want to fight trying to fight leaks. So hopefully we have no leaks.
Okay. I think I saw a couple of questions here, Kate.
Yeah, let's go ahead and hit up some questions. I'm going to go ahead and get ready to start mixing some of this up.
What are you lining your box with? Okay, so we just explained that. So
Yeah.
Tyvek tape.
Let me
And
see.
we'll need to remember all this so you can link all this. I'm gonna write this
Yep,
down.
everything will be linked.
Tyvek tape.
Here is what I use. It's called Tyvek tape. It's nothing fancy. I actually ordered this off Amazon. You can get a better deal with it if you buy it in bulk, and with as many epoxy projects that I do, I buy it in bulk. But yes, after the video, we will be sure to link everything that that we can use on here. I will say when you're working with epoxy, you definitely want to make sure that you're taking care of your safety, using protection.
There's a good question here.
Yeah.
Mold release. Do you use mold release?
I do have mold release. This is what I use right here. If you guys want to take a picture of that, epoxy mold release. I believe I bought this from Woodcraft, and I will be really honest, with as much Tyvek tape as I currently have on here, I have not used epoxy mold release. I've done several molds with just the Tyvek tape, and the Tyvek tape is actually overlapping by probably about 10%. And so I don't really ever have an issue with that. Now, if you're running your tape just on the line, just tiny bit overlapping, there is a possibility that the epoxy will stick to your mold. But because of the way that I tape things, I don't have that issue and don't really have to use the epoxy mold release.
Facebook user asked, is that just contact paper? So she must be talking about, or they must be talking about that.
The tape?
You just explained, just the Tyvek tape.
Yeah.
Mark Lindsay has joined on.
Hello, hey, Mark.
Jeez, he just shows up everywhere, doesn't he? So
that's all right.
The famous Mark Lindsay has jumped on to join us once again. Very honored to have him on board. What else we got? Well, having everybody on board. Jay in Arizona. Arizona is one of my favorite states, by the way. Remember I told you a story about the cactus? Did I tell you that story? No, I'll have to tell you sometime.
Yeah, we'll have to do that. So right now I'm just opening up some epoxy.
Now, what is the temperature in the shop right now? That's what
I have it at 72 in here. Now, once the epoxy is poured and I leave the shop, I will probably turn it up to about 75 degrees.
Okay, so for those of you who have joined in the last few, this is a live epoxy pouring session where Kate Tucker from Rise and Shine Wood Signs and Women Who CNC. She's got two things going on, sister.
I'm a multitasker.
She was pouring a table that I have commissioned for her to make for me. And we figured this is going to be a really good opportunity to help you, our CNC brothers and sisters, start to learn the epoxy process. I am epoxy stupid. So everything I'm learning, I'm starting learning from her. Of course, learned a lot from Nate Woods on that one session we had a few weeks ago, a live session on Wednesday.
Yeah.
So this is not one of those videos where just bam, 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 everything's done. We're just going to be going through the whole process, and we'll come back and forth to the questions. And I will try to ask the questions that you may be thinking of. For me, who is someone who is absolutely naive about epoxy and the process, I will do my best to ask the same kind of questions that anybody who's just getting into it. What do I do here? What do I do there? We bounce to YouTube and search endlessly to figure something out, and never really got our answers gotten. So that's what we're going to try to do here. And I'm kind of excited. Brought my grandkids up, and one of them was rode around on her your go-kart.
Go-kart four-wheeler.
Until the go-kart went down. And so who else we got here? Would you normally be wearing a respirator? This question comes from Jen.
So it really depends. I really like the Upstart epoxy because it is very, very low in VOCs. When I am mixing, if you're like leaning over it, yes. In any other instance, I would always wear a respirator, a mask or something just to kind of filter out all of the fumes that can come from the epoxy.
So are we going to get stoned while we're working here?
Probably not, but there's a good chance. And I will tell you, the higher the temperature in your shop, the more it's going to kind of like whack you upside the head and you're going to notice the smell.
As needed, if we need to, we will open doors to ventilate. Now, one of the things that as we were getting ready to do this and getting set up, this building here is a separate building from her house, from Kate's house, and it is temperature controlled. When she was looking out her window, she opened up her door and says, "Close the door, flies are going to get in." And so there's a big thing about bugs when you're doing epoxy. Talk about the like dust and bugs and all this stuff when it comes to doing epoxy work. How do you protect yourself against that?
So number one is keep your doors, keep your shop doors closed. I actually had my shop doors closed for about 2 weeks just to make sure really carefully that no bugs, gnats, because for some reason they are just like so attracted to bugs or to the epoxy, and it makes me absolutely crazy. I've had several projects that are literally like pristine. I'm ready to, buff and seal, and I'll come out here and there will be a gnat in the middle of my project, and I'm about ready to like blow a gasket.
Just the littlest little speck.
Yeah, little tiny, like a gnat, like a little fruit fly that's just
so bugs like bodies, they like
anything with
electrical
heat.
zappers, and they like sticky things. So they'll come right here and there's something sticky.
Yeah,
there must be some kind of odor or something in it that they like.
Yeah, and God forbid that they try to like move around while they're in the epoxy, and then it creates even more of an issue.
Yeah. So one of the other things that you had mentioned when we were talking to Nate is a fan, right? You put a gentle fan. So she has a fan over there blowing. And what's the intent of that fan is just kind of keep the heat moving off of the epoxy. So epoxy is a chemical process, and all chemical processes, most of them generate heat. Mm-hmm. And so as the epoxy cures, it heats up. And I guess your tabletop, you have fast drying epoxies, which are going to heat a lot faster. Your deep pours, clear me up if I'm wrong, it is designed to set a lot slower because there's so much more mass in the epoxy.
Yes, absolutely.
I have heard of one instance where there was an epoxy fire, and the only way that's going to happen is so much heat was generated from it, and it couldn't escape, and it overheated and got everything.
Yeah,
that's pretty bad. I mean, that's pretty high temperature.
Yeah, absolutely. So I do have, so you can see I have my unit back here, and it's actually moving some air. I have a small little fan over here in the corner, and it's not on right at the moment, but I'll be turning it on here. It just makes just extra noise in the background. So we'll get that going. And then it's just a matter of making sure that you're mixing correctly, you're using the right ratios. That is like probably the number one mistake with people is they think, okay, if it's like if you're using 2 ounces and you go a little bit above the line, and then I'll just, pour in 2 ounces, and then I won't add that little additional extra amount that's needed. So if it's 4 ounces, it's just going to be really tiny. You have to make sure that the epoxy ratios are like dead on. So what I'm going to do is I have just some clean buckets from 5-gallon buckets from Lowe's that I've never used before. They are clean. And I'm going to go ahead and start pouring the epoxy into this.
All right, I'm going to turn my camera on.
Okay.
So.
And you want to make sure that you pour it slow as well. You don't want to just like turn it over and dump it.
So as we're pouring, I guess one of the reasons you want to minimize air bubbles as much as possible, right?
Yes.
Okay. So how do you, so we're pouring this and it's going to get mixed. I know that some people use vacuum tables.
Vacuum, like a sealer, like a pressure pot.
Yeah, well, no, they actually use a vacuum system that'll what it does. Like we used to do this when I was engineering. It'll expand air bubbles that are in the fluid. So,
Oh, okay.
and then when the air bubbles get expanded, they'll rise faster through the fluid.
Gotcha.
But so you don't use a vacuum system. So right now you are pouring. That's 2 gallons that she has just poured of the. This is the epoxy itself.
Yes.
Yeah. Now she said we have to, once you get that, she said we have to stir it for a good 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How can I help you here?
I'll tell you what, if you want to hold that on there.
Okay.
And we're just going to try and get that.
Do the other one too? Just to let it dribble out?
Sure, if you want to.
Okay.
Got it?
Yep. So the reason Kate asked me to come on up is because this is a 2-person pour.
Yeah. It's a very big.
And this is your first large pour, is that correct?
Yes. This big. Not necessarily this deep, but this big.
Okay. I hope we're not blocking the camera too much. Okay, looks like most of that's coming out.
Yeah, so this is the hardener that we're mixing in. And you can see it's just kind of coming out like water.
So it's 2 to 1.
2 to 1.
Okay. I'm going to check on questions while you're doing that.
Looks like there's a little something there that popped in.
What brand of epoxy are you using? So that comes from Carter.
So I'm using Upstart Epoxy. I really, really love their epoxy. This is what it is. This is their deep pour kit.
Yeah, in case you couldn't see it all. That's it. So this is the epoxy itself. The blue one is the hardener.
All right. So what you can do next is I have this like little mixer here. I've never used this before. It's strictly for this epoxy pour here. And we can go ahead and start mixing this up for 5 minutes. But the thing you want to do first, if you're using any type of liquid pigment here, this is the Alumilite brand. I really like their brands here. Yeah, it's a little tricky with 2 cameras. We're trying to figure out where should we show things?
I don't know. Well, this we can move it around so that they can see all the goodies, and if you can get close. I mean, if it's showing, then
yeah.
If you can see it.
Okay.
Okay, so she's going to put some dye in here.
Yeah. So we're just going to give it.
That was just like 2 drops.
2-3 drops here. All right. So let's stick our thing in here, and we're just going to go kind of slow. I'm looking at 306.
We can't really tell if it's coloring up because it's such a dark bucket.
Yeah.
But we do know it can't went into the bucket clear. Oh, wait. Am I seeing like little color reflection?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're mixing. Talk about the mixing process.
So as you can tell, I'm not going like full blast on my epoxy. I'm not, because I don't want this to be really, I don't want to make the epoxy angry, if you will. I don't want to create a bunch of bubbles. So what I'm doing is just using the drill with this piece here, and I'm just kind of going around and around, making sure that we're going to get everything stirred really well. And if you notice, I don't have a lot of epoxy on the sides here. But if you do happen to get a lot of epoxy on the side of the on the side of your buckets. You want to make sure to scrape that in when you start mixing and start incorporating that. Because if not, it can kind of mess with your mixture later on.
Dion said the vacuum system worked great for me on thin epoxy pours. No bubbles at all. However, we tried it for deep epoxy, and the one part, I'm going to bring up this comment. And the 1 quart of epoxy blew up to 5 gallons in foam. Just a warning. Okay. Interesting.
So what did he say?
So he said it blew up into foam. So in other words, there was so much air in it as he was using the vacuum system, it's going to make all the bubbles in the epoxy expand. And there were so many little micro air bubbles. When you pull vacuum, all of them expanded and it turned into foam.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So a very interesting point, Dion. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah.
David says he uses a broom handle through the jug to drain them. Oh, interesting.
It's hard to hear you.
He'll take a broom handle or something into the jug.
Oh, yeah?
And it'll just act as like a little streamer.
Uh-huh.
As like when you're...
Oh, so it's not like glop, glop, glop.
He's talking about when we're draining the rest of it. He's got like a little post in there, so it wants to attract the post and drain stuff.
Oh, okay.
Interesting little physics thing.
Little tidbit there. I see.
Facebook
Just
user. So Facebook user, just so you know, this is being done live on YouTube as well, on the IDC Woodcraft YouTube channel, and on, is it Women Who CNC or Rise and Shine?
Rise and Shine Wood Signs.
Well, Rise and Shine Wood Signs YouTube, and you'll be able to see all the comments there and the dialogue that's going on. We got a lot of people hanging out there. The Facebook user's question is it known to foam up if you go faster? I'd say it's just like mixing anything.
Well, if you go faster, it's not necessarily the speed, but a lower speed is going to keep for less bubbles, and it just keeps the consistency mixing, keeping the epoxy and incorporating it from part A to part B. But it's, like I said, it's not about the speed. It's about the time that you're actually letting it mix. So if you guys are seeing it here on, on this view where I'm looking at it down here, you can see it still looks very clear. You're not seeing a bunch of bubbles pop up. So when you work with a cheaper brand of epoxy, you'll notice sometimes that you get a lot more bubbles. The other reason I'm not having a lot of bubbles is because I actually have it, I warmed it up. I used some warm water.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's so. Do the containers like give you an ideal temperature, operating temperature if you're working it?
I think it just basically says between 70 and 84 degrees.
Okay, so that gives you an ideal range. All right, so we have someone that did get a fire. It was Billy McGee.
He did what?
Billy McGee.
Yeah.
He said he caught one on fire by laying a sheet of plastic over it to keep stuff out.
Oh, yeah.
We learned by making mistakes. It was costly. Yeah, that's why people like me and Kate and like Mark Lindsay and a lot of the other folks out there teaching you to help you try to prevent mistakes. That's one of the reasons that we always encourage new users who are using the Vectric software to go get like Kyle's training, right? Because a lot of people are like me, and they just dive in, and it's not like taking apart a machine when you're working with software. We like to figure things out on our own. There's so many new aspects to it. You got nodes. You have to understand nodes and the different kinds of nodes, open vectors versus closed vectors, and lots of little things.
That's too high.
Okay,
Here,
you need me at this.
Nope. I was just trying to find somewhere to let that rest for a second. So I'm actually, hang on, let me put this chair down here. So I'm letting the epoxy rest for about 3 to 4 minutes. And so that way that just allows the air bubbles to come up from the bottom if there's any air bubbles coming up from being mixed. And then they will set on the top. And you can actually use 2 ways. You can use a heat gun and take the bubbles off the top that way, or you can use a torch, whichever your preference. I personally just like to use a heat gun. I think it just, you know, keeps it simple, and I don't have to worry about getting the epoxy too hot on the top and then pouring it.
Yeah. Okay. So quick thing. So the stuff that Kate's using, this deep pour, she has it on her website, womenwhocnc.com. And if you decide to get into it and use the brand that she's using, then if you would do her a favor and go through her website, because it costs the same, but she gets a little bit of commission out of that as an affiliate, right? It's just so for her efforts of showing us and spending time with us.
So here's the color.
Oh, look at that. So that you put the 2 drops of the color in there. Now your blue glove is covering the blue.
Oh,
Here,
can you guys see that?
I think so. Yeah, you can tell. Oh, I like that color.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's just 2 or 3 drops for this entire.
In 3 gallons, 3 drops of that.
Yeah.
So that's nuts.
Yeah. So I can actually make it a little bit darker if you want.
We can put another drop in there. Why not? Let's see what happens.
Well, I'll tell you what, we will. So because it's already in its rest mode, we'll put it in the next batch.
Okay.
Because we can always keep mixing, but it's really important that once you get your jugs, you want to keep doing this consistently. So you're probably going to hear a lot of the drill in the background. So if you guys want me to turn my mic off or like whatever, that might, you know, I don't know, just so they're not hearing all of that like constantly.
We're wearing gloves. Talk about why you're putting gloves on outside and just keeping the stuff off your hands. Is there anything else that did you learn a hard lesson? Not wearing gloves that made you say, I'm going to wear gloves?
No, honestly, no. I just know it's a chemical, and anytime I work with chemicals, I wear gloves. So normally you would want to wear long sleeves just because you want to keep it off of your skin. You don't want to get it on your clothes. It will not come out of your clothes. So that's I just take the precautions to use the safety gear. Jen asked a great question earlier about if I wear a respirator. Normally I would wear a respirator, but the other reason I really like the deep pour epoxy is because it has extremely low VOCs. The other thing I want to bring up about
extremely low what?
VOCs.
What is that?
So it does not. Honestly, I'm not sure, but I don't know what a VOC is.
VOC.
But I know if you have high VOCs, it is more toxic and to breathe.
Yeah, somebody put in the comments what VOC stands for. All right, so in the meantime, I'm going to read a couple of comments. Kevin said you can also warm up epoxy with a heating pad.
Yes, I do have a mat. I'll be sure to link that in my store as well. I don't believe I have that, but I do that for smaller projects. A project of this scale, it's kind of hard to warm up 12 gallons with a heating pad or a mat. But yes, Kevin, that's a great point. I have done that before.
All right, Mark Lindsay just shared he just pulled the trigger on a 10-gallon pressure pot today. So
fancy.
He has a 15-inch diameter plastic mold to cast. Okay. And
awesome sauce.
They also shared that for small castings, you can use plate covers made of insect netting. That will breathe. Okay, so now you are using the heat gun. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, so I'm just using my Milwaukee heat gun that I really like. It has 2 settings, and you can see the bubbles right on top. And I'm just kind of taking this, and I'm just going to run the bubbles right over. I'm going to run the heat gun right over the top of it, and I'm just popping any of those bubbles that came to the surface.
So bubbles actually come to the surface while you're doing it. So what is the intention of heat? Because I always see that on when people are pouring on YouTube, right? They'll run over it with a torch, which I see you have over there.
I do.
And it knocks down all the bubbles. But I've also heard that if you go like just a little too long, you can actually cause other issues. So talk about the bubbling and the torching and heating. Like what?
So the reason I like to go ahead and do the bubbling we're letting the epoxy rest, and basically any air that has developed within the epoxy, it's raising to the top. And I'm just using that heat gun to simply get rid of the air bubbles that have kind of popped up before I do the actual pour. So when you use the heat gun, I mean, it's kind of a catch-52 when you're using either a heat gun or a torch. A lot of people just like the torch because it's a fun visual representation. You're using a flame, you're using a chemical, popping those bubbles really quickly. A heat gun, but heat is also great for popping bubbles if the bubbles are a little bit like surface level, but maybe like 1/16 down low. That heat will help pull those bubbles out and get rid of them. Heat guns are typically used for moving epoxy around. So let's say you want to make like a resin river, or not a resin river table, a resin like an ocean effects. So you'll see people pour the resin on the board, and then they'll use the heat gun and they'll push the epoxy to get that kind of wave look. So that's kind of one of the benefits to that.
Interesting.
But
Okay.
do you want to do the honors and come pour your first pour?
Ooh, yeah. Okay.
All right.
We get a couple comments. So nobody, Mark, Donnie, or Danny, I'm sorry, and John, they all said they didn't hear the drill running.
Oh, okay, good.
Okay. And then Mark shared VOC is volatile, but volatile. Duh. Good Lord, Garrett. Sounds Italian to me. Or volatile organic compounds.
Okay,
And Jay also shared that.
very good.
And all epoxy has a VOC level. This comes from Mad Dog. This
Okay.
refers to the volatile organic compounds that make it up. So basically, it's the fumes that are coming off of it, and
Yeah.
how toxic that can be. And how
Okay,
much
before you
get.
take any more, let's go ahead and pour this.
Okay. So
And then that way I can keep mixing more epoxy, so we're still keeping things within our time frame.
Yeah, because it takes a little bit of time. So we're just gonna put it on here. Where do you want me to pour at?
Let's pour down here.
Okay. All right. Let's see. I'm gonna position this guy right over here. And,
Yeah.
all right. I have no clue what I'm doing, so the master is going to guide me.
All right. It's kind of the same concept when you're pouring. You want to pour low and slow. You don't want to just kind of dump it all in there at once.
Okay.
So
we're
here,
right in the middle here, or what?
I'll tell you what, I'm actually going to grab my phone because I want to make sure that I get this miraculous moment on video for,
Da, 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 da.
I know, for the YouTube video for people to watch this later
In the
to
meantime,
come.
it's good exercise. So. All right. So
All
like
right.
right in here, should you pour close, or should you pour in the middle? What's the
It's really going to kind of go everywhere.
Okay.
So, but I'll tell you what, before you do one thing, take one picture, smile, making some memories. Sorry.
Yep.
I'm a mom first. It's part of the nature. All right, go ahead.
Okay, here we go. Okay, so nice and gentle and slow. Pour slow. Oops, so yeah, I'm going too fast.
You're
That's
all right.
making bubbles.
You're all right.
So now let's just get it going. So there are a few bubbles that show up here. Is that normal?
Yep, that's perfectly normal. Look how pretty it is.
That is so cool. I actually like this blue.
I know, isn't it beautiful? It was about 4 drops.
4 drops of dye turns the. Dude, now I'm excited. This is making it real.
I know. Look at that blue with the actual colors here of the wood.
And we can actually make it lighter on the top so the natural colors of the wood can show up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
I did my first epoxy pour.
I know, it's so exciting.
It really is. This is like watching the CNC router for the first time.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, here. Let me grab a scraper here.
I don't know what to do next.
All right. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to get in here, and I'm using a paint paint scraper. And actually, it's a paint stick, just a straight good old paint stick.
Okay, just getting out whatever you can out of there. Right?
Yeah. You can tell there's quite a bit left.
Yeah. So as soon as she's done scraping that out, you buck it down and I'll bring the camera across there and show them the bubbles and then
Yeah.
and the whole thing. Okay, we good?
Yeah, we're good.
All right.
All right, so I'm going to toss
So-
this in the garbage.
Here's what we have just done. So it has worked its way around. Now, Kate,
Yes.
at the beginning of this thing, you talked about why we put a little bit of table epoxy here, and you explained that the little air bubbles that might be in here that will come up and seep up and maybe not work its way out, but you talked about a crack. So you got
Yeah.
a little crack there. What's the principle behind making
So-
sure you cover the cracks?
Yeah, we've got a little crack right here on the very top and here on the edges. And basically they act and operate the same way as these little pieces over in here. You want to make sure that you're sealing those, because what happens is air gets trapped down in there, and then it can actually create issues for you later on when you're, maybe a couple years down the road, months down the road. There's a lot of things that can happen with epoxy. So that's why it's so important to take these initial steps to prevent that. Doing this pour, I have been waiting for like this section of the pour for months. But I can tell you, building this mold, tedious, sucky part of the process. If you watched over on my YouTube channel and any of my shorts, I actually showed you when I was doing all the grinding. I probably spent anywhere from 10 to 15 hours grinding on this particular piece because the bark was so thick, it did not want to come off. And then underneath the bark was actually called the heart of the wood, and it was like red. And my brother is like a wood connoisseur, if you will. And he said, "You're not going to get that off." And I said, "Oh, I already did." So
Right,
who on
okay.
you?
So it has worked its way into all the little gaps there.
Yep. And
Okay, so there's a little bit of not foaminess, just bubbles.
Yep,
right?
bubbles are just coming up to the surface. I'm just walking around the table right now. I am looking
for leaks.
for any leaks. And I am happy to report I do not see any leaks.
Never would have thought about that. So
Yep.
whenever you make your own mold, check for leaks.
Yep, absolutely. We definitely want to make sure we're checking for leaks. So I actually have epoxy all over my gloves, and I am actually going to take these off because I don't want epoxy all over my my heat gun when I'm working with this. So I'm just going to turn this on, and I'm just going to kind of run it over. You can
Get to a
see.
point where you actually see the bubbles and the
Yeah.
reflection, so that we
Okay.
make sure I get to a point where.
Okay, you ready?
Wait a minute. Okay. So I
Okay.
can see bubbles in there.
All right.
Right here. And
So we're just kind of vanquishing the bubbles.
going away.
Yeah.
Down, the bubbles are down. Look, that's good.
Yeah. So it just kind of gets rid of the bubbles.
This is kind of like, when I see people doing this kind of stuff on YouTube.
And you know what? I
And-
see
And
one.
then you got a few more bubbles over here.
Yep. I see one little fuzz.
Okay.
See, look at that. Can you see that right there?
Good eye. Good eye.
Oh, hold on. Little dinky fuzz. You guys see it on there? That's ridiculous. But that's the kind of eyeball you kind of have to have when you're doing stuff like this. Oh, I see like a little fleck of dirt right there. Now, see, when you're doing regular epoxy,
Yeah.
colored epoxy, that stuff is not they're not really that important. Because it's mixed in with the color, so it's not
Right.
super relevant.
But if it's clear, that's something.
Yeah, it's clear. It's going to pop. It's going to show every single little thing here.
So if you remember just a few moments ago, there were a lot of bubbles around on this thing, and now it's like I don't see anything.
Yeah, so I see. And some of this, sometimes like I cleaned this mold to the nth degree yesterday, And I did every single thing I could think of to make sure that I had like all the little fuzzies removed or whatever. But it turns out, you know, I didn't get every little bitty rinky dink little dinky fuzz. So that's what I'm looking for right now. I just want to make sure that there's nothing else floating around in here.
And you're using reflection to your advantage in this case.
Yeah. So like there's a little piece of something. I don't even know where that came from. You'll see there's like a little fuzz of something here. So you can see around the edge of the fin here, I call it the fin, there's a lot of bubbles populating up around this edge, and that's because epoxy is coming. So when it's poured, it's pushed underneath here, and now all those bubbles are trying to escape.
And so now they're working their way around underneath the material to get to the top.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start working on pouring the next batch. But I do want to say Alumilite has a really great brand with the dyes. The black works the exact same way. That's how I got that black tray that I did with the epoxy and the walnut wood. Alumilite is by far one of the most superior pigments. This is actually called translucent blue. So when you pour it, it is actually translucent.
Okay.
So
as opposed to one that's opaque, what have you.
Yeah.
Okay. For those who have showed up mid-video here, we are pouring an epoxy table, and I don't know anything about epoxy, but the table that you're looking at is one that Kate's making for me.
We're going to try his little
she's
technique
running
here.
us through the process of actually doing it, and I'm asking all the epoxy dummy questions because I don't know, and I know a lot of other people want to get into it, and we all need to learn something. So that's what we're doing. So she is now starting to pour the second batch of epoxy, and I get you trying that little technique there.
Yeah, I tried the stick down in there, but I see what he was saying.
How does it? How do you feel like that's helping you?
It's working, but I feel like I'm getting more bubbles. And the other thing I don't like about this idea is that the stick is actually getting a lot of epoxy on it. And so I don't want that to take away from the measuring.
Alan, can you remove all the bubbles with heat, or is it the case where you will have some left in?
Okay, say that again.
He said, can you remove all the bubbles with heat, or is it the case where you will have some left in it?
The idea is to have all of the bubbles gone. You don't want to see bubbles left in the epoxy.
All right.
Yeah, so I'm just kind of like hitting this like on the side of the jug instead of like pouring it like directly into it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just letting it naturally come out of the jug.
Okay, so she is pouring 2 gallons of the epoxy, and the ratio in this case is 2 to 1. So the one part will be the hardener.
You got it.
Now, one of the Danny has a trick for the gloves. If
Sure.
you spray isopropyl alcohol onto paper towels before you start pouring and have it laying around, you can wipe your hands and it takes it off the gloves. Is that making sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I do have some isopropyl alcohol. And actually, alcohol is really great for using to pop bubbles as well on the surface instead of using a heat gun or a torch.
All right. Patrick had a question.
Yeah. What's up, Patrick?
And so the same question that we had before. It's what brand? So Kate is swearing by Upstart Epoxy. And This is deep pour. Deep pour means it's going to take a lot longer to set. And he's wondering what the cost was in this case with all this epoxy that we have laying around here. And there's more right down there. She's putting it to room temperature. Actually, it's a little bit above room temperature, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, well, that feels comfortable. It feels like a swimming pool. So
Feels really good.
The cost on this?
The cost was $18.95 actually.
1,895.
Yes.
Just so we're clear on that. Also, Kate has on her website, Women Who CNC, links to this stuff. So if you decide to buy it, please go to her website and buy it there. That because she gets a little bit of a commission for it, rather than you're still paying the same price. Just, companies reward people who promote their products by giving them a little bit of the action.
Yeah. So again, we're going to use the Alumilite drops. I'm only using 2 to 3. And I do want to tell you guys right up front. So this product this is a 1 ounce bottle. This doesn't actually have the price on it. Let me look at my other one. So for this dye and pigment is about $7. And you're probably thinking that's crazy expensive for, I mean, I know $7 isn't much, but for dye it can be. But watch what I do. So I'm just going to go 1, 2, and about 3. And you said you wanted to go just a smidge darker?
Sure.
Okay. Let's just do.
Kate keeps asking me what color you want. I said, I don't know, Kate. I just want blue. And so it's but you know, this is for me, this is
34.
It's a creation, and it's also opportunity for her to play with colors the way she wants. So I don't really care what blue. I just want it to kind of see through it.
Yeah.
Let's see.
What kind of questions do we have?
There's a few other comments about the isopropyl alcohol. People keep it around because it's a good cleaner.
Absolutely.
So Patrick and everybody else who is watching, who I said before, the links for the stuff is on Kate's website. The website is womenwhocnc.com.
Yes. And I don't know. I think I have all of my liquid glass epoxies listed on there for the deep pour, but I will post the Upstart epoxy link as well.
So I'm writing on your pad, glass epoxy. Is that what?
I have the liquid glass and the deep pour, so they can purchase it off of there.
Okay. Yeah. So when we're done, Kate will get out all the links for this, and then she'll put them in this video as well, and the description of the video. Billy says hair and epoxy is his nemesis.
Yes.
Is that something you've noticed?
Yeah.
Hair? Okay.
Yeah, like little fuzzies, or if you have any type of pets, like keep them away from your epoxy tables, keep them out of the shop.
Okay. So he has a good suggestion though. He says hair nets.
Hair nets, yeah.
Yep, hair nets. Okay. But that's what he uses, but hair still get in there.
Oh.
And Danny says he has the same issue. Mad Dog says a torch works best for bubbles if you feel comfortable using one.
What is it?
The Mad Dog says a torch is he likes the torch better. So it's better for bubbles.
Yep.
And he said it's faster. But it's just using the heat that's actually doing the work to do what it needs to do. Manny67 said, would preheating the epoxy help reduce the entrapment, the air entrapment?
Say that.
I screwed up the word.
No,
okay.
When you're reading, you're looking that way, and I can't hear you.
Yeah, okay. Would preheating the epoxy help reduce air entrapment?
Yes.
Okay.
Heating it up, yes.
Heating up beforehand.
Yes, that's why it's in that sitting in that warm water over there. And actually, real quick, will you check the temperature of the water? Just like stick your finger down in there and make
Okay,
sure.
well, right now it feels just a little bit. It feels like a swimming pool. It's not body temperature.
Okay, that's okay. I just don't want it to get cold.
Okay, it's
'Cause
not
then-
cold at the moment.
Okay, that's what I don't want. We may have to
But
pull it out.
It doesn't feel warm either. It's tepid.
Okay.
Alan says alcohol is good for drinking too. Agreed.
Agreed. No arguments here.
Right. Mark Lindsay says he's with you on this one. I don't have to make it pretty on my color wheel or design books. Right. And Ellen says she loves that idea. Okay, Richard has a question.
All
Will
right.
the epoxy color change over time, darker or lighter? So I'm assuming he's talking about as the table ages.
Honestly, I don't know because I've never had a table. That's a great question, though.
Yeah, yeah. But
I would say you definitely. So one other thing I really like about the Upstart epoxy is it's actually UV resistant. So I'm keeping it out of. Yep. If you want to hit them with the air gun, you can.
is that air bubble?
Yep, those are air bubbles.
It's like foam then, huh? All right.
Yep.
Oh yeah, look at that. All right, let's put the camera over there before I put the
Yeah,
heat
I got one
down.
more minute on this.
Okay.
Okay, actually, my minute's up.
So there's a little bit of foam. Let's see if we can get my camera turned out right there. It is right there. A little bit of foam coming up, and I'm assuming that's coming up from underneath, right?
Yep, that's exactly right.
Okay.
And I see
So
a
I'm gonna
couple
put the heat
little.
gun on it. Let me reposition our camera.
I thought I saw a fuzzy in my.
Kate's gonna look for other floaties and whatnot.
Yep, floaties. All right, I'll let you tackle that. Oh, that's just a piece of tape. Okay.
Okay,
There's a little fuzzy dude.
does this need to like heat up at any level, or can I just go right?
Yep, you can just go right on it.
I'm on the low setting.
Whatever floats your boat.
Oh, bam, bam, bam. What? Where'd they go? It was that quick.
I know, isn't that crazy? How quickly they just go away.
Yeah. So one of the things she looked around the mold to make sure that it didn't leak after we poured the first pour.
Yep. And now I'm just giving the epoxy another chance to rest. So again, we're just letting, so I mixed it for 5 minutes, and you always want to make sure and mix, like set a timer, watch your watch, do whatever you got to do. Make sure you mix your epoxy for the appropriate amount of time. If it says 5 minutes, don't do 4, don't do 2, don't do 3, do 5 minutes.
So what is that?
So mixing it is basically the manufacturer's recommendation for mixing this. I guess, oh, you know what? They have a QR code on the back of their thing, on the back of the Upstart epoxy jugs. And you can actually scan that with your phone, and then it will take you directly to their website. And then you can, got some alcohol in here.
QR codes. Here's a little business tip for you. If you do not use QR codes on your products, if you're in CNC business, you want to find a way to use QR codes. Now, a lot of times you'll see QR codes. Just so you know, QR code is this weird little dotty thing right there. A lot of people use a QR code to go to the Facebook, to like the Facebook or something. On your products, you want QR codes to go directly to your product sales page. And the reason you want to do that, it's the easiest and fastest way to guide someone directly to a product. And here's the reasoning behind that. You make a really cool project like this amazing table here. And when all is said and done, I'll have it, and Kate moves on, and I move on, right? I pass on to the next life. And somebody inherits the table, and they say, "Oh, that's so cool. Where'd you get that from?" Oh, there's a QR code on the bottom. They scan the QR code on the bottom, go straight to Kate's website to these river tables that she sells. Now she has a contact and a potential customer because you used a QR code.
Yep.
QR codes, use them. I use them for information. on every router bit, the IDC Woodcraft router bit has the QR code on it. And that way you can go directly to that. It takes you directly to the sales page, right? But it has all the feeds and speeds in the sales page as well. So just want to make sure you are aware of that.
There he is. I knew he was in there. And by the way, what I am using here is I'm actually using a dental pick. These are a little bit harder to come by. This is actually a true dental pick. A friend of mine was retiring and they were getting rid of a bunch of their tools. So he brought over a whole ton of them, knowing that I use them for stuff like this. So if you cannot find them, I looked and hunted everywhere for a really good deal because obviously dental tools are expensive. I went to Harbor Freight and I found the best deal on little picks like this. So I think we are ready for the second pour. I'm just kind of heating that up again.
You was talking about the fading or the darkening of the epoxy. That being out in the sun is not a good idea.
No,
right? Okay.
no, you don't want to ever have epoxy in like direct sunlight. So this will be in his living room. Obviously the sun is filtered because of, you know, curtains being in the living room. So it should be perfectly fine for many moons. So, all right. Do you want to pour?
Sure.
Okay.
Well, I almost want to see your technique of pouring versus my technique. Or was my technique your technique?
I think my technique is your technique.
Okay. All right.
Here, let me move.
Pouring is pouring.
Yes.
But you just don't want to.
Yeah, you don't want to like gush it in there. Yeah, exactly.
I didn't dribble it anywhere, so that's
You did
good.
not.
It's not like me.
I'm gonna put this over here. If you want to go ahead and grab it, you can. Oh, go ahead and grab the bucket.
Oh, okay.
Oh, you know what we forgot to do? Hold on, before we pour. We didn't vanquish the bubbles.
Oh, okay.
We need to
All
take.
right, so
Here, I'll tell you what. I'll let him do that.
Okay.
And
so
do you want me to grab that camera?
yeah, sure. We'll talk about what I'm doing again for those who have just popped on. First of all, let's just let them know what we're doing. So it's just letting everybody know what this live video is about.
Okay, so go ahead and get in there and just get those bubbles gone. We're just looking to have a nice clear surface. You can put it in there a little bit further.
Okay.
There you go. And we're just getting rid and eliminating all of those bubbles. All right. Looks pretty good to me.
Okay. All right. So I'll put that over here.
All right. Let me set this back up here. You guys can see what we're doing here.
We're now doing the pour. Second pour. And there are more bubbles coming up right here.
Yeah.
So this is a natural thing. How long can you like torch it? Like meaning not like that, but
yeah, if you do that,
2 hours later, can you torch if bubbles come up?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because this actually takes about 72 hours to cure.
Okay.
So, oh, you know what? Let me grab I want to get a different angle.
Okay. So Kate wants to do more video on this.
All right, go right ahead.
Okay, here we go. Second layer. It's a slightly darker color.
And that was 1 drop more.
1 drop more. And there's a lot of bubbles that are coming in as a result of the pour.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why this will get torched up again.
You can see the previous and then the new coming in.
So for those who are watching and just come in, this is a live pouring of a river table that Kate is making for me. And she is teaching me about epoxy, and we figure we can, she's going to share her knowledge, because epoxy is a normal progression in CNC. Makes your projects look quite a bit more different. We had a guy named Nate Wood who is really well versed in epoxy. He has a business where he does epoxy floors for gyms, of all things.
Yep.
And I forget what kind of floors he calls them, but he actually has a course out now
Yep.
to teach you all about this stuff. And so I don't know if that's in the link of the description. or not.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So you're looking for Nate Wood's course. And of course, like I mentioned about the Vectric software and not trying to go it without getting your skills built up.
Okay.
That would be Kyle's course. That is also linked down below. But right now, this is an epoxy live video course.
Yeah. So much information.
And we'll get back to questions in just a minute. Okay. So going to do this heat thing again, right? So
Yep.
middle. Okay. And
I'm just going to kind of run it back and forth.
Okay.
Oh, we've got some in here.
okay.
I know what they're hard to see.
Even are these like little micro bubbles that I see down there?
Well, no, I mean, they are teeny tiny bubbles.
Yeah, there's lots of, you can, I assume in the video, you can see bubbles, some of the foam,
Yeah.
but there's lots of little ones in here as well.
So what we'll talk about next is actually mixing the rest of this up. And because you can see where Garrett poured at the beginning of the table, it's actually a lot darker than what it was. And at the end of the table, where he was not, it's actually that same color. So if we want to mix it up, we can, because that's the great thing about deep pour is with this particular table, we're not looking to get swirls. That's not what we're doing here. We're basically just blending the colors together, and that's what we're looking to do. So we'll just grab a paint stick while he's finishing up that.
We're going to show with the camera the difference in color from this side to this side, just because because we use one extra drop. So I'm sure I'm going to have to hit that a little bit longer.
Yep, we've got some extra fuzzies.
So
down
this is
here.
the side that we poured on, and you can see now it's a pretty deep blue over here. And
Yeah.
come over to there, it's lighter.
Mm-hmm.
And as we progress up the table, it starts to get really light. And this is where the second pour stopped, right there.
Yeah.
And so you can see it's lighter here and darker here.
It's like a line of demarcation.
It's a progressive. It's
like an ombre.
Yeah. So the next one we go to 3 drops, and then that way we can pull it up a little bit, or maybe even 2 drops.
Yep.
Okay.
Absolutely. That's the beautiful thing about epoxy and all of these different colors is you can really customize it to the way you want. And I would encourage anyone who's wanting to do a big table like this, do a smaller version. You still need to get the depth of the epoxy, right? Because let me show you a prime example. So I was doing some test samples with different color blues that I wanted to use. So I said, like, here's this light blue, do you like this, like, this colored glove blue? Do you like this more transparent? You can see that there's a little bit of a difference. There's like less drops in here, more in this one. This one's a little more aqua teal. This one's, pretty close. It was like, and then you don't want to guess what color this was?
That looks black.
You know what it was?
What?
It was that same exact epoxy that we used.
No way. Hold it up to the light. So
yeah.
Really, really deep blue.
So this was 4 ounces of epoxy. So don't ever feel like just because the color says that it's transparent on the bottle and then you pour it in a small amount, it's actually going to be very, very different. But because I'm using 3 gallons of epoxy, the color is going to be very different, as you can well tell. Okay. So let's go ahead and I can be the cameraman if you want, and you can mix this.
Okay. Well, I was going to get more air out, but I guess we can do that afterward. Right?
Yeah. Because we're going to mix things up a little bit. Oh, go ahead and leave that down for a sec.
Do that first.
Yep. So let's come down here and we'll just kind of blend and
so you
mix.
Be the camera girl.
Yep. I'll get it. I got it.
Let's be politically correct. The camera person, right?
Oh,
the technician. There we go.
I'm a woman, girl, whatever you want.
Women who CNC. That's what. If you are a woman and you are in the CNC space, Kate has made a Facebook group. We're getting kind of swirls here.
Yeah.
It's Women Who CNC on Facebook, and that's for women only. We have been doing some mentoring some time ago. I was mentoring Kate in business, and she realized that if you want to be in business, right, you have to have a niche. You can't just make stuff and hope that you're going to sell it. There's a common saying in the business world of entrepreneurs: if you're trying to sell to everybody, you are going to sell to no one. You have to find your specialty, and it's usually an area that you know, right? So after we did quite a bit of deep dive into
Yes.
you and what you're passionate about. Okay, so we got some floaties right here.
Yep. That's okay.
Okay, don't worry about it. That's
Nope,
actually
we're just
air
gonna-
bubbles.
Yep. We're just going to keep mixing, and that's a natural occurrence.
Okay, and she realized that her real passion is what she's doing now with the Women Who CNC, which is, at the heart, you're a teacher. You want to help others.
I do.
Yeah, but she had to really think about it. What your passion is. For me, for a long time, my passion was Jeep Wranglers. I was a total Jeeper, right? and I came up with Jeep product inventions and stuff. And I've kind of lost that passion that I had. I still love having a Jeep, but I'm not all about it anymore, right? I'm about teaching you what I know now, and but it comes back to niche. So I like the way it's dark up here and it's getting light down there.
Mhm.
That is actually something I could live with.
Yeah. If you
That's
want to
good.
stir this, you can
Oh, yeah.
actually you can like drag some of this
Okay.
and then just kind of mix them. Yeah. There you go. It kind of just gives it a little bit of a different vibe.
Okay. So I splashed a little bit up on top. I guess that's not going to matter. We'll have that covered up soon enough.
Yep.
I feel like I'm making a potion.
Oh my gosh, you were hilarious.
So we got a little swirl going on here. So just keep mixing until that swirl's gone, or
Yeah, you just keep on
kind
mixing.
of do it until I like it, huh?
Yeah, but what I want you guys to notice is how smooth this epoxy is. There are very minimal bubbles. Now, I will tell you, if you're going to use a deep pour epoxy and you're going to do something much smaller, I would not recommend using like a paddle mixer or something like that. I would recommend stirring it by hand, especially if you're using deep pour epoxy, just because you're running the risk of adding more bubbles into it. Now, because this is such a large volume of epoxy, it's okay to use that swirl because the drill is going to provide a much more consistent stirring than me and my arm getting wore out. So all
what do I
right.
do with this?
I'll take that
Okay.
and I'll give you
Set
this.
back up over here. So to finish that up, she felt that one of the, even though she wants to educate everybody, she did realize that there's women out there that may feel a little
Intimidated.
stepping into what just a world that they're not necessarily used to, and sometimes can be perceived as a man's world. Where so anyway, she created Women Who CNC, the Women Who CNC Facebook group for women only, so that you can work together. And the whole thing behind it is to create that space where people aren't maybe not being as condescending or challenging because you don't necessarily know what sometimes we think is a stupid question, but there's no stupid questions. All right,
We all have to start somewhere is the biggest thing.
All start somewhere. All right, what do we got? Speaking of questions, how do you deal with dimples on the surface once it has hardened? That came from Nigel.
So there's a couple different ways to combat that. It really depends on if you are, so this table will actually be getting taken to a shop and being surfaced. So I don't have to worry about that too much. And like I said a couple Wednesdays ago when we talked to Nate about certain things, it's not really a huge deal if you get a ton of stuff on the top of the surface, because that's actually going to be getting surfaced off originally. But that's why you see me picking things out now, because we're not in that top coat. we're still in the middle layers. And so that's why you see me picking out little fuzzies, you know, or little tiny hairs.
To give you an idea how far we are, so we still have at least 2 pours to go.
Yes.
All right, so there you go. We've covered up about 2/3 of the wood at this point. But then we got the top layer. We have to cover up. I'm going to say we got 3 pours to go here.
Yeah.
That's just my best guess. I am not the calculating expert when it comes to doing this.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember.
But let's talk about calculating. Right? Calculations. There are ways to do calculations.
Yeah, so I actually use the epoxy calculator on Upstart Epoxy. There's epoxy calculators all over the place you can use. One thing you do want to calculate is you're not necessarily calculating the entire like width of the project. You can also measure in between the 2 pieces of wood and the length and the pour that you're actually doing, because a lot of people get confused and they say, this is my mold size and this is what I'm going to be pouring, but that means you're calculating the volume of the entire area. That doesn't include the wood. So make sure that you're calculating for the width and the length of your space that you need to cover. So, all right, I'm going to grab some.
Stacy said that suggested making a bucket holder, like a stool or something that would just be for your bucket.
Yep, I actually have one, but it's got my fan on it.
Oh, okay. So she has one. So you're not bending over. Keep that back healthy.
Yes,
Thank you, Stacy.
I wholeheartedly agree.
And she said she loves being a member of Women Who CNC.
Fantastic. I love that. Thank you, Stacy.
So
I'm gonna use these
Billy
ones.
McGee shared with Nigel, you can always sand down the dimples and
Yes.
then pour over top of it.
Yes, absolutely. All right.
Yeah, Mark said he loves QR codes, but for some reason, a lot of folks don't really understand how to use them or what they're for. So yeah, QR codes are they're like barcodes that you'll see on products, but they are much better because you can lead
They're
people to
interactive.
websites. You can write a love letter through it. You can.
Well, why don't you tell them how to use a QR code for those people that don't know?
Yeah, well, on your phone, on your cell phone. I can't show you because my cell phone's being used, but you'll have a scan function on it, and you hit that scan function, that will come up, and you scan a QR code, and
or even just using your camera.
What that QR code is, and it'll take you to the site. Okay, question.
Like on my iPhone, I just open up my camera app and I can scan it with my camera.
Right.
I don't have to have an app.
Amelia asked about no masks or ventilation.
We do have plenty of good ventilation going on, and no, I am not wearing a mask for this particular project. I know that's bad of me. But that's why I chose this product, Amelia, is because it has very, very low VOCs. So I don't feel horrible about not being covered up this particular time, but we do have a lot of ventilation in this shop. So we're okay at the moment.
Yeah. VOC is volatile. What was that? It's outgassing. Basically, it's the fumes that come off of it, and it just depends on how much is coming off. Really, they haven't smelled anything coming off of this. Let me take a whiff. We won't go there.
No, it's okay.
All right. So a question from Richard to me about QR codes. So the question is, can it be engraved in wood and readable? And that's a great question. Yes. The QR code just needs contrast. So either the background is darker than the code itself, or the background is lighter than the code itself, and the scanner can read it. I have carved on wood on projects to get a QR code, but we do have to paint the code. It has to be a different color, basically. There has to be color contrast for the scanner to pick it up.
All right. That one is That one had this bottle had a lot.
QR codes can be generated from QR code generator. It's qrcodegenerator.com. You can get them for free.
Yeah.
Now, I use more advanced QR codes in my business. I actually have tracking. I create tracking codes. If you look at the links in my descriptions, they are starting to look a little bit different. It says link IDC Woodcraft, and then there's a few digits and numbers after it. And that helps me know how many times people are clicking on a certain link, right? And it gives me as a business owner feedback and data. To grow a business, data is everything. You want to know what works and what doesn't work. So my QR codes look a little bit more busy.
How much is it? 403.
Patrick asked, are there fumes with epoxy, with pouring epoxy?
What is it?
Are there fumes with pouring epoxy?
Yes, and most there are. What did I say? 403.
Amelia said, if you don't have clean air ventilation in your shop, you will get particulates and hair, which are all floating in the air. Clear epoxy work needs almost clean room type environment. Very difficult. Good point.
Yes, it can. It definitely can be, and that's why we did mention in the very beginning that I've had my shop. I haven't really been doing anything in the last 2 weeks preparing for this and being sure to keep my. I have like a big service door on my shop and making sure that that's down, as well as keeping my my door closed. Because literally, as Garrett and I were inside my house before we came out to the shop, my husband and father-in-law came out here and they had left the door open, and I whipped open the window in my kitchen. I was like, close the door.
The flies will get in.
I don't want any flies, so close the door.
Okay, here's one for you, Kate. Chris Gallagher, he is watching us on a 100-inch screen.
Oh my gosh, Chris.
Hey, Chris, what's going on?
Oh my God. Can you imagine what that looked like? Hilarious. Oh my gosh. You're backing me up right now. All right. I'm gonna
Question
multitask
from
it.
Charlie. Will there be different colors blend, or will it show as layers? Okay, so will it be a color blend, or will it show as layers? So we mixed this, so
yeah,
like literally mixed it on the table. But how do you get like color layers?
Like a stacked?
Yeah, and would you get stacked layers just if we kept doing what we were doing without mixing it? Let's start with that one.
I mean, yeah, you definitely can. It depends on the amount of time in between each particular cure. Sorry, keeping things moving here. So if you want a layered look, you really need to mix the epoxy, let it cure, come back, and then pour another layer. It's the same concept as if you were working with like florals or corks or bullets or something like that, some type of object that you're trying to cast. You want to pour it in layers to prevent the bubbles from creating bubbles. So, I mean, you can work with a tabletop, or you can work with a deep pour epoxy, but it's just going to take it longer to cure. And that's why a lot of people that don't work with epoxy don't understand that A, the cost, and B, the amount of time that goes into a project like this, because all they see is this finished product. They don't see that you're going to pick out the wood, and that you have to do that, or that you have to go buy the lumber, and that you have to find the right product to make sure that the mold doesn't leak. And then you got to have the tape and the sanding and the grinding and the buckets and the mixing paddles and all this stuff. So that's why when you see these big epoxy river tables, they generally have a price tag. Some of them are $5,000-$6,000. And so when there's creators and makers on Etsy, and they're charging these prices for these products, that's why, is because there's a lot of labor and work that goes into these tables behind the scenes. It's just not that final finished product.
And you have the cost of the epoxy. So
Oh yeah, don't
the
even.
cost of this epoxy here. So you got, swing the camera up. There's a bunch sitting on the table over there.
And there's a bunch over here that we've used.
More over there we've already used. Okay, so how much is this mix?
This is $1,895.
So this is another reason why epoxy tables are so expensive,
Yes.
right? I mean, you got to wrap that cost in your labor. So if you make the table like this, let's, in the comments, let's take some guesses with just the information of what a table this size would cost. So this is a huge chunk of live edge maple, right? And then it is 32 inches wide and 4 feet long, 5 feet long.
4 foot long.
4 foot long.
3 foot by 4 foot.
So given the wood, the lumber, the amount of epoxy, which you said $1,800 for what we're using here, and the labor put into it, let's take some guesses. What would you charge for a table like this? Remember, there are still legs that have to be made for this thing.
Yeah. Yeah, we haven't even gotten there yet.
Let's what is some more questions? That is Danny says that's a really good color for that wood.
It is.
It really is.
It's beautiful. So I do want to mention one really quick thing. All right, I think I'm done with this. I wasn't satisfied with the color and the pigment because we added that extra pigment, and that's why you noticed that we had a lot of kind of color meshing, because sometimes your pigment, if you use too much pigment, it won't interact with the epoxy and it won't blend as well. So that's why I had Garrett stirring the table, just so you know. The other thing I want to bring to your attention is when you are working with a drill or, like a stir stick or a paint stick or some type of product like that, you want to make sure that you are not raising the element that you're mixing with up and down, because that just creates more bubbles. So you want to put it in and just keep a really consistent working.
So you're not like churning it like this.
Yeah, it's not like you're mixing butter or whipped cream.
You're just doing a nice, easy round and round.
And then you can
same with the stir there. You're set on low speed.
Yeah.
You're not like coming up and down. You're just letting it work its way through the thing.
You got it.
Right. And a slow stir. Billy, you mentioned something about that. Is really important. Otherwise you get the bubbles in.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to go ahead and hit this. This seems to be the one spot. The rest of the table actually is looking like absolutely fantastic. We don't have a lot of bubbles. The only piece I'm seeing a lot of bubbles come up is right here. And that's because the epoxy has gotten underneath that and it's just pushing the bubbles out and it's releasing.
All right, Kate, you're going to like this. Stacy has made a suggestion.
All right.
I like her name. She says there is no substitute. I guess there's no substitute for Stacy.
Got it.
All right. Okay. So she says, Kate, would you ever entertain doing a Women Who CNC in-person hands-on weekend workshop seminar for things like this pour, etc.? I would definitely make my way to attend. I think that's a fabulous idea, Kate.
Yeah. 100, like hands down, 100%. If people are willing to come and travel here, I will say I live in Indianapolis. I actually live on the outskirts of Indianapolis, about 30 minutes. And so we have the Indianapolis airport. It's quick and easy to get to. So.
And she said she would be glad to help out in any way, including communications.
Yeah, 100%. I would gladly do any type of project that they want to learn, workshop, whatever. Yep. We could even do, like a couple-day workshop. Depending on how many women we had, you could stay at my house or stay
we
close
could do
by.
an all workshop, right? Do the routers and the table. But we can't do routers and tables in the same room.
No. That would not.
Carter's asking, will there be another live stream when you surface the top coat after the initial cure?
So there will not be another live stream, but I will be videoing that because I'm actually taking that to another maker. He lives down in Kentucky, about 2.5 hours from me. So I will document that journey and make sure that's a part of the video. So you can see that, but he has I believe a 5 foot by 10 foot table And so we have worked out an exchange. I'm actually going to work with him and do some vector training, and he's going
Who's
to
this?
surface my table. I knew you're going to ask me that, and I'm terrible. I will put his name in the description to make sure and give him a shout out. I don't remember.
Okay. Was
Because
this that person that did you say from Australia? That person?
No. Because I'm going to travel to his shop
Oh, okay.
and get it surfaced.
Okay.
So I'm so sorry. I can't remember the name. I haven't looked at the email. It's been like a couple. I mean, he reached out to us right after Nate's.
Gotcha.
So it's been like a month since I've talked to him
All
via email. I just told him when we were done, I would reach out and
right.
do that. So the other thing to consider when you're doing large pours like this is you have to consider cure time. So 72 hours is when it's not tacky, like to touch, like you can walk up and touch it and everything else. I will probably give it about a week to 10 days before I actually demold it. And then I'll probably give it a full 2 weeks before I actually take it down and have it surfaced, because I want that epoxy to be completely hard. I don't want it, I don't want the table bending or bowing or anything like that during transport or, when it's being surfaced. I want to make sure everything is good and set up.
And for the next few days, your CNC router's down now because this is here.
Yes.
All right.
Yep. I won't be doing anything out here. I may be doing some painting, maybe some coaching, more lives in the Women Who CNC coaching session. So that should be interesting. All right. So we are at 4 minutes.
Okay. How many drops did you put in this time?
I put in 2.
Okay, 2. So
And here, let's use the heat gun. If you want to
yeah.
grab the heat gun.
I forgot. See?
Hey, that's all right. That's all right.
That's
Here.
kind of like, so this is why I put out the setup sheet.
Yeah.
CNC router setup sheet, right? When we're new in CNC or epoxy, there are lots of things that might, by the way, Kate, get a setup sheet for your epoxy. Make sure all these steps are followed, right?
Yes, that's a
so
great
for
idea.
CNC router there's multiple setups, and if you miss one step, you potentially have put yourself in a position to wreck a project. And that's why like pilots use checklists. And so IDC Woodcraft has put out a checklist. When you go to idcwoodcraft.com, a pop-up comes up where you can get that checklist.
Yeah.
Right? I suggest you get it and download it and use it. Mark Lindsay is brother Mark. He swears by checklists, and I've actually thrown mine to him. And he said, Garrett, you forgot this, you forgot that. And it's like, dang it, now I got to take it back to my designer. And I can hear him going, you just want one word changed? What? Come on.
I know.
I mean, it's a lot of work, because then it's got to come back and I got to give it to my tech guy. He's got to put it on the website. We got to create new links. And
boy.
But you know what?
It's a whole thing.
It's got to be done right.
Yes. I'm actually working on a checklist myself for programs. When you have to surface a board, you got to select the board and you got to look for certain characteristics in the board. And then you have to set up a toolpath just for surfacing. And you want to do that before you take the time to create your or save all of your toolpaths and save your G code, because once you surface it, the board is going to have a difference in height. So then you're going to have to adjust your job setup. So I'm working on a checklist of making all of those things. I mean, the things we have to do to even get to the CNC is a little crazy sometimes. Let's just, be really honest with that. All right. So I'm going to do something just a little bit different here. Since everything's looking really good, I'm going to add a little extra heat by running the torch just right here to see if I can pull some of those additional bubbles up.
So I'm going to pull the phones. Now we're using the torch. Oh boy.
It's good and serious. I'm here.
Kate is now going to be
I'm officially dangerous.
Officially dangerous now. Kate the arsonist.
I know, right? Okay. So we're just going to lightly run it over them. And you can see the bubbles just like disappearing.
Yeah, so fine. I mean, it's like they just.
So the rest of, everything's looking really good. Just light.
She's not getting too close. If she got too close, things are going to start burning right away, like the wood.
Yeah. And you want to be careful too when you're using Tyvek tape, because you don't want the tape melting. And then also you don't want any type of, and you don't want to like just heat the epoxy.
But sometimes it'll look like a bubble, but really it might be like a fuzz, because you don't want to stand there and just say, oh my gosh, this bubble won't pop. And it's not necessarily always a bubble. It might be like a teeny tiny piece of something.
Okay, I'll put a torch on
in
your list.
here.
You get links for that.
Yeah.
So everything we're showing will be in the description of this video later.
Yeah. So the reason that I did that is because you can actually, I was trying to bring the heat up, the temperature of the resin just a little bit more. So then that way those bubbles would be a lot less, because some of them are trapped underneath this top surface that we're seeing. And you can even see that the bubbles that are coming up right now, they're a lot smaller than the other really, really prominent ones that you saw before that almost looked like a little bit of a foam.
Yeah, little tiny ones. How my boys doing? All right, cool. Got my grandkids here at Kate's, and so they're hanging out with whatever they're doing. I have no idea. We've been hanging with you this whole time.
What do you think? You like the color? So my husband's actually here. He just kind of came in to check things out. I know I talk a lot about my husband on our lives and stuff, but you guys have never actually met my husband or checked him out. He's going, no, you're not showing me on camera. He's been out mowing grass. So he looks, he looks like he's been mowing grass, hardworking man that he is. So what are the kids doing? Well, they're playing hide and seek. Listen to that, y'all.
Good.
We got some good kids. When you live out in the country, you throw your kids out on the property back in the day and say, don't come inside, like get a drink from the garden hose, and like you're locked outside and we lock the doors. No, I'm totally kidding. We don't lock the doors. But yeah, throw them outside. I mean, let them be kids. Let them use their imagination. They're playing hide and seek, for God's sakes. They're what? Like your grandsons are 10 and 12? Are they 10 and 12?
Is it what?
Hunter, is he
Hunter's
he's 12. And then Gabe
is 10.
Gabe is 10. And then my son is 14. And his best friend that's here is 14. So bunch of boys just outside, just being boys, having fun.
Okay, got a couple more questions going on here. Let's see, Kay says, hi, Garrett and Kate. Does this particular epoxy don't need to wait between pour steps because of heat buildup during the chemical reaction?
Okay, hold on. I'll have to circle back to that. Hang on one second.
Okay.
Okay, what was the question?
The question is, we don't need to wait between pours on this because of heat buildup. This is a deep pour. Explain the difference between tabletop and deep pour again.
So deep pour is very liquidy. It's not your standard epoxy, like a tabletop epoxy that's going to cure and you only have like 30 minutes of working time. You actually have about, I believe it's between, I believe it's like 6 to 8 hours of working time, because it actually doesn't start, like it's not hard for 72 hours. So that's why we have all of this time in between to do all of these, additional steps, talk, let the epoxy rest, let it really bring all those bubbles up. And so now we've actually given it about 9 minutes of rest, and I just popped a whole bunch more bubbles. So
okay,
I think we're going to be good to go. So you want to go ahead and do some more?
Okay, yeah.
And by the way, if anybody's just joining, this is an epoxy. It's a 2-to-1 brand for this deep pour. So I am using 2 gallons of just the regular epoxy and then 1 gallon of hardener for each one.
Okay, here we go. And so there's only 2 drops in this one. So it'd be interesting to see the difference. And oh yeah, I can see it just as I'm pouring it.
Oops, put the wrong password in my phone.
What's that?
Oh, I put the wrong password in my phone. Oh yeah, look at that. That is like totally different. Yeah. Oh man, look at that. It's so crazy, you guys.
This is
Can you see that?
amazing.
All right, here. Let me move the camera down here so you guys can see. Make sure you guys are. Uh-oh, are we?
We're just coming to the top of the boards now.
Look at that. So see, you can see the different ombre color where it's still that darker color down here on the end.
And the thing is, the deeper you go, the darker the color is going to be because it's just that much more. So lightening it up a little bit is a good thing to do here.
Yeah.
And there's still a bunch in the bucket.
All right. I'll come scrape it here in just a second. So you can see it's starting to, oh, you know what? Let me do something really quick here. There we go. Now I can see what I'm looking at. So you can see the difference between this is the new pour and then this is the original where it's much, much deeper down here versus it is where he poured. Like I can actually read Tyvek pretty clearly in there. All right, so I'm going to set this back up.
I need Kate's help. I can't move until she does what she has to do here.
All right. Oh, don't want to drop the phone in the epoxy.
No, don't drop my phone in the epoxy here.
That would be bad.
Bring it down here. I'll tighten it up.
Okay.
Just lean it over here.
Yeah, I don't want to lose
Okay.
the phone. Okay. All right, just make
That's $1,000 cell phone. I don't want to drop it in the epoxy.
Yeah, let's not do that. That would be very bad. All right, may even move it back just a smidge.
Yeah, just have to reposition the camera so you can see what's going on the table.
Okay.
I actually like this, the way that's working, because then
Yeah.
you can see what you're working on. And
All right, so let's go ahead and
so this mold that Kate has made is just made from a piece of plywood on the bottom and 2x4s going all the way around. She has used Tyvek tape, and this is 2-inch wide or
yeah.
okay, Tyvek tape, which she got off of Amazon. She will link that. Is that on your website?
I don't know. I'm not
Okay.
sure. I have a lot of epoxy projects or a lot of epoxy products. Okay.
Yeah, on womenwhocnc.com. She has lots of epoxy links. If you decide to buy epoxy, please check with her first and then
Yeah.
see if she's got it on her website. And if she does, then you can get it through her and she will get a little bit of credit for that. So should we pop do the bubbles before we do the mixing?
You know what? I'm going to take up one of my friends here, one of his techniques, and I just poured some alcohol on there. And let's go ahead and pop the bubbles.
Okay. Can you see the bubbles in the camera?
Let me grab the camera. I think that's a great idea to do. All right. And
This is a live epoxy pour.
all right, go ahead.
Kate and I are doing for a 32-inch by 4-foot table that I commissioned her to make for me. And this is her first large deep pour project. So I think she's been more excited than I have to get to this point. But now that I'm here and actually doing it now, because
Come
I've
on
never
around
done
here.
epoxy before. So now this is kind of getting my epoxy kind of.
I know you're learning all the things. Don't forget about your corner over there.
Oh yeah. So it's still dribbling up bubbles from
Yeah.
underneath that guy right there.
Yeah, it will. We're just gonna keep working with it. We got some popping up there.
They just keep creeping up. You can't
I know
see
it.
them until they get
do.
to the top.
Guys, I just want to say, can we just say how beautiful this is turning out? And that Alumilite, I mean, what? It's been maybe 10 drops of that ink total, the alcohol ink.
Yeah, and we are now 2 inches thick now.
Yeah.
So 10 drops of dye.
Yeah.
And so we have 2 different tones here.
All right.
So
So let's go ahead and give it a stir.
Okay. Where's the stir stick? Just get a new one or?
Yep. We'll grab, and if you want to spray it with a little bit of alcohol on it.
Spray the stick with alcohol?
Yep. And then I'll wipe it off real quick.
Okay. So right here?
Yep. Just hit
Okay.
it.
So let's talk about this. Why are we doing this?
So basically I'm just getting rid of any type of, oil or, if there's any type of debris or anything, I'm basically just getting rid of the fuzzies and cleaning it up.
So the idea is when you're doing the epoxy it's all about cleanliness.
Yes.
Right. Because we don't want to get the little fur
Yeah, oh,
balls in here and whatnot.
I see one little, sorry.
Laser eyes right here.
I think epoxy has done that to me. I won't lie.
Okay. All right. So now we're just going to stir it around. And can they see on that? Yeah.
Yeah, you can
So
see.
you can see dark over here, quite dark, and then over here it's quite light.
Yeah.
And you can see it in the camera. So that's cool. So the idea is to get this evened out.
Yeah, and the other thing you can do too is, I didn't even, think to mention this, is you can actually, walk when you're pouring. You don't have to stand in one stationary position. You can walk back and forth
Oh, okay.
and do your pours as well. I love how this is looking.
Yeah. How you feeling about this, Kate?
I'm so excited. I'm not gonna lie. I'm like a little kid on Christmas.
So Kate, there's your next business thing outside of your mentoring, teaching. Oh, by the way, teaching. Kate teaches one-on-one with the Vectric software. I was asked, do I do that? I used to, but I stopped because IDC Woodcraft is going into its own directions and some other things. So I didn't really have the time to dedicate to one-on-one teaching. I am going more towards group type of thing, but there's just lots of stuff going on in the background. When it comes to a business, the thing about business is business is either growing or dying, right?
Yeah.
If it stays stagnant, then it gets boring. And you want a business to grow. It's just like we want to see our babies grow, right?
Our kids grow.
Is that a good way of putting it?
Yeah, I think that's a great way of putting it. You're always changing, pivoting, evolving. Just if one thing doesn't work out, you don't want to just give up. You want to keep doing what you're doing. Keep at it. There's been so many times I've called Garrett, and I've even talked to some of my other entrepreneur friends, and I'm like, do you just feel like you want to throw the towel in? And they're like, every day. But I just keep working because it's my dream and it's what I want. We all have those moments. None of us are exempt from, feeling overwhelmed and like this isn't going anywhere and this isn't going to pay off. But
as a business owner or as an entrepreneur,
yeah. I mean, but
are you starting to see the necessity of the pains that you went in the early part of your journey?
Mm-hmm.
And to think that you are still going to have painful stuff like that is
a lot.
Yeah, because you're always growing. And the other thing about the business end of it, right? I mentioned before about the checklist, the CNC router checklist that's now available on the IDC Woodcraft website. That's after the company's been around for 2.5 years.
Yeah.
Right. If you that's part of growing. What does the market want? What do people need? What's going to make their job better? And so we're always adding to it, adding to our business model, tools, resources, and whatnot. And of course, making more videos for you like this live, which is going on. This is probably the longest live of.
Yeah, long time. But now you guys can really see if you are interested in doing a river table. Now you know what it takes to get to this particular point. And then on top of it, not only that, you know how long it takes to mix the epoxy, to wait for it to settle, to pour it, to, let it kind of do its thing.
How long did it take you to actually prep the wood itself for this?
About 10 or 12 hours.
And what did you have to do to get it there?
Okay, so I took a knife and I worked with it and I tried to get a lot of the bark off. I used a chisel, I used a hammer, trying to break the bark away from it. Some parts of the bark were like really on there, and then other parts of the bark were like would just peel right off. But like the rounding and the smoothness of the actual piece, I used about 2 or 3 different grinding wheels that I have. I used really coarse flapper wheels, and I also used very fine flapper wheels, trying to get this piece to where it is. Over on my YouTube channel, over on Rise and Shine Wood Signs, you can see some of the shorts of me grinding and doing that. I actually did take a track saw and a circular saw, and that's how I cut this board in half, because it was 2 pieces. It's a really good thing to talk about that really quickly. A lot of people don't understand, how do I get the wood to look like this? And so this was actually one piece of wood. This is the back side of the wood here, over here on this far side. And so what you do is you basically put your tracks on, you mark it off, you cut it right down where you want it, and then you flip it, and then you bring it over to this side. And that's how you have a flush side here and a flush side here. And that's what creates that really cool river effect. And a lot of people, you know, it took me a while sometimes when I first started looking at the stuff, I'm like, how on earth are they getting that really cool, like river look and both sides are flush? I don't know. Maybe I'm just an extra bit of a dingbat, but you know, you don't know what you don't know. And I started looking at it and I went, wow, this is really cool. So let me, I do want to
see a few
take,
bubbles starting to work their way up.
yeah. And I want to
I was
look,
trying to hold a question in my head, but I lost it.
did it run away on you?
Come back.
Yeah.
I
I'm
wanna
just cleaning this
well,
off
we
real
got
quick.
questions here. So Dion asked,
Yeah.
are you going to weight down or clamp the lumber so it doesn't float?
That's a great question,
That is a
Dion.
wonderful
It's
question.
an excellent question. So actually, that's a really popular question that a lot of people have. And the reason that I don't have weights on this particular project is I actually took wood screws, I flipped the project up and drilled into the bottom of the wood. So it has just, there's three in this piece here, and there's actually 2 in this piece over here. And it just pulls the wood down so it's sealed. Because of things like this, we know where the epoxy is doing its self-leveling. It is, I don't have to worry about weights with Tyvek tape. I actually have stuff like that I do use. So this is just a weight from our weight bench that we have. And I just,
It's just like a 5-pound weight or
yeah,
2-pound weight.
Yeah. I just wrapped it in Tyvek tape and I will set it on top of certain pieces of wood. If I have smaller projects that like in a smaller silicone mold that I'll want to use, I'll do stuff like that. Let me see. I think it's in here. So this is another thing that I like.
Oh, I got a.
Yeah, these are just like my silicone molds. So if I have a piece of wood that I want to, you know, use, because I don't want to put it on the edge of my table and clamp that piece of wood down and do with all that, I'll just put that piece right on top. Those weights right on top of that.
Do you have any silicone molds on your website yet?
I have a couple. I don't have these, which actually, if you'll put this is a 35 centimeter resin mold. I think it's about 18 inches,
Okay.
I believe.
All right. Knock out a couple other questions. What are the over/under? What's the over/under that this will leak?
The what?
The over/under. I'm not sure what you mean by that. So this came from Cosman. What's the height of the
table?
Yeah, the height of the mold here.
Of the mold. So this is about 2.5 inches. That's actually why I'm using this paper thing. If you want to come here and take a look, I will show you what I'm doing, because you really want to pour about 2 inches. And so
okay.
You can see I'm just using this little ruler here. And I am right at a little, well, I think I might have been a little off of the thing here. Hold on. So just maybe a little bit above 2 inches. And that's the max we're going to go for this pour, because the deep pour epoxy resin is actually only designed to go about a 2-inch pour. Now I can come back after 72 hours and this has been cured. I can come back in and I can.
We're not going to finish this.
It can only go 2 inches deep.
Oh man.
I know. But would you rather your table bubble and catch on fire?
Now I'll just have to skip out of work and come back up here.
I know. So
Such a letdown.
Oh, no, it's not. It's
no,
okay.
It's not.
So yeah, you do want to make sure that you are not going above and beyond the epoxy's max 2-inch deep pour.
Okay.
So we want to be
Follow the
mindful of that.
instructions.
I know. After
Yeah.
72
Well-
hours, I can come back. I can pour probably the last set of epoxy. I'll pour that on top here. And you guys notice, probably in the video you've seen, I do have some extra epoxy sitting here. And the reason for that is because we had initially anticipated to have this the 36 inches wide. And that's where we have the extra gallons. That's where that would come in. And then if there are any issues or anything like that, it's always good to have a little bit extra on hand. So I think it calculated out at about 11 gallons. And then I went ahead and ordered one extra one just to be safe, you know, because sometimes I've ordered epoxy, not, this hasn't happened with the deep pour with the upstart epoxy, but I have ordered epoxy in the past, and it's, you know, it's been leaked or a seal got cracked or the box got dropped. And then like the epoxy opened up and, you know, you kind of get like this hardened mess. So that's why I went ahead and ordered an extra gallon. Just, I would rather be safe than sorry when it comes to stuff like this, especially when you're doing this type of project. I'd rather have a little bit more product than not enough to finish.
At what point can't you do this on? Like you say, you come back another 6 hours, you're going, oh, there's more bubbles.
You hit them with the,
You
hit them
hit
with,
it?
yep.
Okay.
So I'll probably come out here at least once an hour for about the next 8 hours, maybe 8 to 10 hours. And I'll just keep a close eye on it. I can even pop bubbles as much as, you know, sometime tomorrow morning. I can come out and pop the bubbles because it will still be pretty fluid. But the great thing about epoxy is it's very forgiving. Even when it is a little bit tacky, you can still take a little bit of heat to it with the heat gun, warm it up, and then it just kind of molds back in together. So yeah, it's pretty exciting stuff.
Yeah. Okay. Let's
But-
check out some of the more questions here.
Yeah, let's
And,
see what we got.
Again, thank you those who are here. We have 72 here right now. We did have more.
Awesome.
Let's see. I would pour this batch on the opposite end of the pour to try to get the color blended better if you use the same amount of drops this last batch.
Yep.
So it's just a matter. That's technique, right?
Yep.
Prices. Mark said he wouldn't do this table for less than $6,000.
I believe that.
It's fair enough.
Yeah.
Right?
It's a pretty good size
That's
table.
about right. It's good ballpark, Mark.
Yeah, very good.
The idea of, I talk about this a lot when it comes to business and pricing your projects. Somebody messaged me, they make these Irish family crusts. And
yeah.
And they do it, the inlay. And they asked me how much they would charge for something like that. So that's $300, $400, $500. And they were thinking doing $90. Yeah. And
No way.
it's all about the value behind the project, and you find the right people, they're going to pay for it.
Yeah.
Marianne said 2K epoxy and other materials. She said about 5K, over 5K.
Yeah.
Alan said 555. So everybody's in the right ballpark here.
For a friend, 85.
For a friend, 85. I like that. There you go. For a non-friend, that'd be 12 grand.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
I like her sense of values. That was really good.
Yeah.
Cherokee 57.95. Now we're doing Wheel of Fortune prices, right? I love it.
Oh gosh, you guys are cracking me up.
7,000 Canadian. Excuse me for being late. Oz just showed up. Yeah, we're pretty much done here, Oz. Will give me time to finish cleaning the.
I'm looking at the comments, reading some of the comments too.
We're just reading comments here, so.
Yeah, I did see a comment about about people using the epoxy, and they basically put a thin layer of epoxy down, and then they'll put the piece of, the pieces of wood down on top of it. Excuse me. They'll put the piece of wood on top of it and then allow the epoxy to dry that way. I personally don't like using that method simply because it can create a ton of air bubbles. And that's just not something.
Air bubbles are your enemy. Right?
Yeah. because it really, what it does is it essentially just traps all of that air down and underneath. There's no way to get rid of it.
Julie went to
Says they went to
this morning.
Yeah, they went to an art show this morning in Litchfield Park and saw 2 booths with river type tables. One about a 30 by 10 on wrought iron legs with a small bit of blue epoxy 1 by 8 for $1,200. Yeah, it depends on what type of wood you're using too. So, you know.
Matt says this has been awesome to watch and learn. I've never done epoxy, but yeah, this makes you want to do it. I'm learning too. All right, I can tell you how a CNC machine works all day long. When it comes to epoxy, I'm not as epoxy stupid in the last 2 hours.
Yeah, there you go. Mark said she just wants out of her shop at this point. I live out here just like the rest of y'all. Y'all know how it is.
Sanding, finishing, yeah, I definitely want them out of my shop.
Yeah.
Time is the most valuable commodity. This is from Mark. There's never enough. I wish I could do one-on-one tutoring, but sadly I can't.
Yeah.
That's one of the things when you get on this end of the on this end, people like me, Kate, Mark, and others who create content to teach you, we get a lot of requests for help, and we just don't have the bandwidth to help everyone. It's not there.
Yeah.
It's not there. But we try, and that's why we make content like this.
Yeah.
So it's not like we don't want to. It's in our hearts to do it.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I had this Thursday, Ellen was asking about a project that she wanted help with, and she said, can you do in one of your live trainings a finishing techniques and projects? So you guys would not believe it. This is normally my epoxy workspace. I had my computer set up here, and I had literally every type of finishing project over here, like all of my different paints, techniques. Oh my gosh, it was just crazy. But we had a really good time learning about all of that. And that particular class, I think, was about an hour and a half. So I do the Wednesday night lives with Garrett for usually about an hour and 40 minutes. That one went about 2 hours.
The live?
Yep.
Yeah.
And then I do a Thursday training live within the Women Who CNC group on Facebook every Thursday at 7. So I do that. And that is, free to the women and the ladies in the group. And then we're working on expanding the Women Who CNC website. See, look, there's a little bug right there. Squish him. Squish him.
No bugs in my table.
Squish him. Vanquish the bugs. Anyway, sorry about the little sidebar. But over on the Women Who CNC website, we now actually have, I thought I would announce it here on the live, we actually have a place where all makers can go if you're interested and put your business on the Women Who CNC website. You can create an account and you can check out and see where other makers are in your area. So it's a really cool resource. It's brand new. It just went live yesterday. So if you guys want to go over to Women Who CNC, get a little free business advertising, pop your, create an account. You can put links to your pages, not Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, put all that stuff in there. And then that way, if maybe somebody's out like me and I need to find somebody that can.
She needs a 4-foot machine. Over a 4-foot machine to have this surfaced. Even I can't surface it. I don't want to tile it. So that's how you can do that too.
Yeah. So great way to connect with other people and help people out. Just supporting the community. I feel like it's a really great resource. So.
All right. Jerry said, do you have to sand between layers of pour? So when this sets, do you need to sand this before you pour the next one?
You can take a little bit of light sanding. I don't know that I'll go, nuts with the sanding, but basically you just need to scuff up the surface. And so then that way the epoxy can adhere and bond to the next layer. It's the same concept if you were to do a tabletop epoxy and pour over this, like if we wanted to seal it and have it completely glossy instead of like, the wood being exposed. And so basically what you're doing when you're surfacing it down is I'm bringing it back all the way down to the bare wood is level with the epoxy. And then you'll see a lot of people that will do like, you know, Rubio's or Odie's oil or something like that to kind of seal the wood. Or you can do a top coat, like a tabletop top coat gloss. But before you do that, you do have to sand and get the epoxy ready to be able to bond to the next coat. So that's a great question.
Yeah. I just thought of something, so I'm going to pop back in the screen here.
Yeah, sure. Here, let me move this.
So I mentioned before about the checklist, the CNC router setup checklist that is now available on the IDC Craft website. There's a pop-up that comes on the screen, and you get it through that. And I want you to think about this table here that is being made, and now we've got numbers out there. You know, anywhere between $5,000 and $7,000 you charge for a table like this.
Yeah.
And I want to tell you why, what inspired me to make this setup sheet. Is one of our CNC brothers made an epoxy pour that was, I think it was about a foot bigger. It's like a dinner table.
Okay.
Maybe about this size, but a little bit bigger. And he had multiple pieces of wood in there.
Yeah.
And he was coming in on his machine to do his first surfacing cut. Okay. He set up at 0 and he started the machine, and it came down and plunged down into the table all the way through. He had this deep of a cut before that machine got down to its start point, which meant that the Z0 wasn't set. He said he set it, and I have seen this before.
I would cry.
Where the Z0, the machine does what it's supposed to do. It comes down, touches, and we assume that it's zeroed out. I have seen controllers, and it's happened on my machine, where it didn't take that 0 and set it in the control. Right? So this is
I would have a heart attack.
Part of that setup sheet where you're checking it, and then you're confirming that the controller has actually taken in that number. Right? That's how detailed we get. So it was a $7,000 table. Fortunately, he had enough material that he could salvage it. But that is what spurred me to make that setup sheet. Right? That checklist, which Mark Lindsay has touted for quite a long time, by the way. All right, so some bubbles are showing up.
Yeah.
What are our plans for the legs? We have not finalized that, but I think I'll be talking to Kate about that here in just a little while once we end this live. Shipping restrictions on this epoxy. He tried to order epoxy and was told it cannot be shipped to Alaska.
Oh no.
I don't see why, other than maybe they didn't want to deal with the weight issue, or there are some chemicals in it that restricts it and makes when you're shipping chemicals, there have to be for companies, there are regulations that they have to follow, and there's also maybe because they're having to fly over Canada or something like that, because they're carrying chemicals. Like that may be a reason why they have done that. That's a possibility. I just know when I was in the industry, that was a big deal. Cherokee says I have to add 1 CNC bit to the table. Send me an email and I'll see what you're talking about.
I like Marion says sometimes the wood can be more expensive than the epoxy, or even a lot more. Try big oak or bog oak.
Bog oak.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So many cool things to try.
Yeah. So let's see. All right. I'm just going to move this.
Question. So are you sanding at 220 grit for the preparation of the next pour?
Am I sanding to what?
With what grit are you going to sand with?
I'll have to check my arsenal of sandpaper. I'll probably do something like 220. Okay. I don't want to be super aggressive. You just need something to kind of scuff up the surface. Will you make the camera just a little bit smaller so I can show them all the rest of this?
Okay.
There we go.
Oh.
All right.
The phone seems to be frozen up right now. There we go.
Oh, there we go.
It's a little bit slow. So there's a question there about the color, right? So we know how many drops we used on this.
Uh-oh.
Okay, that camera, the phone just kind of lost its connection.
See if I can get it to try again. Okay,
we're
but we're
at
still
the-
live. We're still good on our other camera.
Yeah. Jack in the shop said he never thought about the controller not taking the Z probe. Mark Lindsay says he's totally supported by checklists. Nobody can remember every detail. Just think about airline pilots.
Yeah.
They didn't use their checklists. As a matter of fact, most airplane crashes are caused because they
Didn't check something.
didn't follow through on something. And we're at the bottom. So the
Okay, our
CNC
other-
bit on epoxy. Oh, epoxy feed rates. Yeah.
Epoxy what?
Kate will be doing videos, feed rates for surfacing and stuff like
Oh,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, but that's for another time. This was for the pour, so we can end the stream on that one.
Okay.
I'm just gonna. Yeah, you already did. Okay.
Oh, okay. That one's already ended. Yeah, we're
Yeah,
good.
it already ended.
Okay, y'all.
So, yeah.
I think we are to a great stopping point. I hope you guys have gained some really valuable information. I hope this has maybe inspired you to do your own river table. Just make sure, you take the appropriate steps to not have leaks. Make sure you're buying, kiln dried wood. You are, using a high quality epoxy that you've worked with before. There's a lot of variables that go into this kind of stuff. And that's why I thought it was going to be really fun, to do this pour live. So you guys could kind of benefit from that. But this is not a quick, it's not a really quick process. This is a very slow process.
I can tell you, yeah.
Patience.
But there's nothing like being there, right? Because I've seen people do it, but now you're here and you're watching it, actually part of it coming together. It's a big difference.
Yeah. And you're getting all those little tips too that you don't get in reading a blog or a YouTube video behind the scenes. They're just they're trying to keep that video somewhat short. And so you're not getting all of your, mixing and letting the epoxy rest and, using the heat gun versus the
following the rules.
The
someone like me, what I would
rule
do,
follower.
And so she's kind of pointed this out to me. What I would do is 2 inches. What the hell? 3 inches. I mean, it's. I'm one that would do that, right? So
yeah, you can overheat the epoxy. The chemical reaction can just be really, it'll just be too much, and you don't want that. You really want to follow the rules. Ellen told me the other day in the training, I said, no, don't do that. And she said, that's what you need to say when you really don't want people to do something. You have to say no. You have to know when to quit. Yes, would it be completely satisfying to fill this to the top and see it all covered? Absolutely. Would it be way easier for me to just pour that extra little bit of epoxy in right now versus having to sand it and clean it and mix and do more and rewarm the epoxy and all the other stuff that it's going to take to do? But then I run the risk of ruining my table. And then at that point, how much money am I going to be out? So
there is a cost to not following the processes. Make sure you give this a thumbs up if you feel like you've got something out of this. And
do me a favor. I'm trying to grow my channel. If you would go over to Rise and Shine Wood Signs and give me a subscribe. I feel like I can ask for that now because I've added a lot of value.
There you go. See?
I've added a lot of value to your day and to your epoxy. So if you can give me a subscribe, I would really, really be grateful. So yeah, I'm glad we could be here to do this with you guys. How long's it been? 2 hours and 24 minutes. Yeah, you guys have been awesome hanging out this long. So
yeah,
I'm super excited.
So I want to rehash real quick what is in this. So we just saw the pour event, right? That's it. Mixing of the stuff and the dye and pouring it, and that took 2.5 hours, right? Plus a little bit of setup time and taking a little bit of time with you to explain things.
Yeah.
That doesn't account for the time to plan and build your frame, all that taping of the tie back, the ordering of this stuff, getting this stuff in, purchasing all your stuff. There's in the planning, the thinking, and the grinding that she did on this wood. I saw the bare piece of wood. All right, so it had to be. It was messed up. It took a lot of work. It's a lot of time investment in that. So that's why give Kate subscribe. You know, give her the credit. She's put in a lot of effort, just like we do to help you. Right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. This has been fun. Yes. All right, brothers and sisters. We will catch you Wednesday at the CNC Wednesday evening hangout. And we are working on getting another special guest to join us.
Woohoo!
Yeah. All right.
All right.
See
See
ya
ya.
all.